Over the last 30 days alone, our agency pulled in over $150,000. That's just in the last month. And a huge chunk of that success can really boil down to just a few core cold email frameworks that our team leans on week in, week out, client by client. So what we're gonna do on this video is we're gonna go through a framework that you can steal after watching this and use it in pretty much any niche that you might run into if you're running an agency or just running your own B2B outbound. Now, there's a lot of dated sales advice as far as frameworks and templates, and trust me, I've tried everything. We've run thousands of variations of different email copy templates, methodologies, etc. This one works in 2025. Why? It cuts through the noise by focusing on genuine personalization. So we're actually trying to show value to the recipient instead of, listing a bunch of features and screaming about reasons why we're so amazing, why we're so great. And that's a lot of what's in their inbox. This framework works because it focuses on being relevant to the person that receives it. That's the fundamental guiding principle. And we've seen it all. We've sent over 5 million cold emails, tested and iterated hundreds of times to finally land on a set of template structures that works. So stick with me the next few minutes and you'll walk away with a framework that can seriously multiply the number of qualified meetings that you're gonna book for your team. And as a bonus, I'm gonna show you later how we guarantee the best possible technical setup to ensure that all that effort that goes into those carefully crafted emails actually lands in the prospect's primary inbox and you don't end up in the junk folder, which means your DOA, no one's gonna go and look in there. All right, let's get into the actual framework for this template. The first part, obviously, the subject line. Now, the main thing here is to give just enough to spark curiosity, some sort of vaguely relevant question, lowercase, very casual, without giving away the entire pitch. So what I see a lot of people doing, which is a fundamental mistake, is listing out exactly the value prop that they're reaching out about in that subject line. It might seem like, hey, you're being direct, you're getting it right in front of them, but what you're actually allowing them to do is dismiss you offhand without getting the full pitch and all of the detail associated. So think something slightly vague, something that sparks curiosity that might have come from a colleague. That's really the fundamental guiding principle. I'm sure a lot of you have seen quick question, which is the classic subject line that people still lean on. It still does work. And the real reason is because it gives away just enough to get you interested, but it doesn't give away the farm either. But I would say it's a little bit played out at this point. There's people getting multiple quick question subject lines in their email on a daily basis. So try to find something else. Lowercase, super casual. Have you seen XYZ? Do you plan on doing this to the site? Question mark. Something like that just gets them thinking. The second piece is that first line. So this is really, if you're thinking about this in terms of ads, this would be their hook, right? What's gonna get them to keep reading? What's gonna get them to understand that you put in the extra effort? So be ultra specific with the personalization. Ditch the generic compliment stuff. No one cares where they went to school. They know that you can scrape this stuff now. So reaching out and congratulating their sports team on a job well done or something, while somewhat interesting that you can pull that info, it's played out enough that the better move is to be relevant, focus on something that based on their role at the firm, that you reaching out to them specifically on this issue makes a ton of sense. If it can show that you did your homework, it's not just a scrape name and title, but you actually dove in and thought about pain points, about things that they're probably working on. It shows that you understand their world, their challenges. If you were an SDR 15 years ago, your boss would have encouraged you to do 15 minutes of research before reaching out to a prospect. We're gonna try to do that in the same way. And in just this line, encapsulate a lot of that context so they quickly understand that we're not just spraying and praying, we're reaching out to them specifically on a very focused value proposition. The third piece, actually, value proposition, right? So now we wanna frame it as the before and after transformation. So here's what you're gonna get. You wanna focus on benefits, not on features. It's really tempting to say, hey, we just launched XYZ feature, it does this, this, and that, but people are busy. All they care about is themselves. You want to translate it into what it's going to mean for them. You're going to save this much time. Our average person in your role saves this much time. They make this much more revenue. They are able to launch XYZ more initiatives, ad campaigns, whatever that value proposition is. Be as specific as possible and focus on the benefit. Focus on what happens. What's the after state rather than getting into the weeds of how you're doing it all. The next piece of this framework is going to be the social proof. So anybody can make a big claim. How are you going to make it real for them? Make them understand that you actually are a practitioner, you're an expert, you're able to help them on this. Well, the easiest thing you can do is point to someone else you've already done it for. Nobody wants to be first. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig. So this is your opportunity to let them know that, hey, people have been down this road before. This works. This is a proven methodology. This is a proven software. And you look like the next person up, saying, hey, we helped your competitor do this, or we were working with a very similar company, they achieved this outcome. All of those sorts of examples. Again, doesn't have to be an essay, doesn't have to be a full case study, but just letting them know they're not first. And then finally, the call to action. So you're gonna wanna wrap it up with, what do we want them to do next? This should be super clear, and you have two options. You have a hard call to action, meaning, hey, I wanna jump on the phone. Do you wanna take a demo? Do you wanna buy? Be the hardest call to action that you could do. The problem with those obviously is people guard their time. You just appeared in their inbox. You're already infringing on their time in a way by getting them to read your email in the first place. What we find is soft call to actions work better than going straight for the kill, straight for the call. So whether it's, hey, do you want me to send this over? Do you want me to send the video to you? Would you like to read the case study? Is this even interesting, or is this even relevant? Are you even the right person for this? All of that takes the pressure off the situation, encourages a reply without them feeling pressure to know that they've just been added to a sales funnel, right? Hey, if I say the wrong thing here, I'm going to have somebody blowing up my phone. Even if that's what is going to happen, you don't necessarily want to induce all the anxiety on the buyer's end as to what that could mean. So something that's really easy to respond to, a yes, no, that leads naturally to more conversation. So that's the general framework for the email. The whole thing should be less than 50 words these days. No one wants to read an essay. No one wants to be assigned homework. They want to look at your email and then quickly understand whether or not this is relevant for them. So what we're going to do now is take this framework and translate it using AI to do all of our customer research and write the email for us. All right, now if this was 15 years ago when I started in sales, you'd be looking up each one of your prospects individually and spending about 15 minutes looking for information, whether it was information on their website, earnings calls, their LinkedIn, etc., to figure out things that you can incorporate into your outreach to make it as relevant as possible, to stand out from the crowd and let them know, hey, this isn't some spray and pray. I'm reaching out to you, Mr. John Smith, or whatever their name is. Nowadays, we have AI, and a lot of that research component can be completely automated. So what we're going to do together here is I'm going to show you how I would prompt to generate emails that follow the framework we just went through as closely as possible. And I'm going to feed it a niche, basically an industry. I'm going to give it a sample offer, and you're going to see how it's going to formulate that email for me without violating any of the guidelines we give it, and making the mental leap as far as how the offer applies best to that persona, what to say, what not to say, etc. So what we're going to do is, on our first example here, we're going to go after mid-sized regional construction companies. Think like 10 million to 50 million. And we'd be going after the operations manager, maybe the head of projects, owner, president. Now, if you didn't know who the ICP was, you could just take an offer and a target niche, or even ask it what the target niche should be, and AI will do that work for you as well. But I did that in advance to save us a little time. So in this case, we're going to be selling a field to office communication software for these construction companies, right? So getting change orders from the field, things like that. So I'm just going to give that example to the AI here. Let me just copy it, and I'm going to label this niche just so it understands. And then I'm going to give it the full prompt. You are an expert cold email copywriter focused on short, punchy emails that book meetings. I'm going to give you a niche below that is our target company and some different job titles that we might target, as well as the offer that we're trying to sell. Your task is to generate 2 to 3 examples of cold emails that follow the framework below to the T, but incorporate elements or dynamic variables that you know 100% can be sourced via something like Clay, using web scraping, or just your training data. And you can incorporate that into the emails, but make sure that no email is over 55 words, and one of your examples should always be under 30 words. All right, let's see if we got all that transcribed. Looks pretty good. It said Claude instead of Clay. Let's just correct that. We've got our niche. We've got our subject line, first line, value prop, all of the elements that we just went through. So let's see how it does. All right, here we go. We're using Gemini, by the way, which is my new favorite model for this sort of thing. Claude is also great at writing. I'd skip ChatGPT except for research, but definitely not for the cold email copywriting. For whatever reason, it sounds robotic when the outputs come out. All right, so quick question. It went with the classic quick question. Can't even be mad. It does follow the rule set we gave it. Saw you recently completed a recent project, build. So that's great, right? We could get that from maybe their website, recently completed projects, etc. Okay, managing change order approvals from a particular region. So we did our homework there. In the office without lag, must be a constant juggle. Imagine your field supers submitting change orders via phone instantly, cutting approval loops by half. So we've got the specific example of the value prop there. We just helped another regional GC. Obviously, this would be better with the actual name, but it's got a hard number here. The delays are down by 35%. Would you have a similar use case? And then we're going for that soft call to action. Would you like a quick case study on it? Here's another example below. Again, following very similar lines. It is doing a good job of finding things that we could incorporate with dynamic variables using Clay without it being stuff that we wouldn't be able to find, right? We would be able to find company name, obviously. We should be able to find materials that are used and obviously the type of construction projects that they take on. This last one is the ultra short. This stuff really inboxes well to Outlook from what we've seen. Outlook is obviously on everybody's mind in cold email because it's super difficult to inbox. What we're seeing is less than 30 words has the best shot possible of getting to the primary inbox. So you want to be able to cut the fat if you need to and test out ultra short emails just to get the conversation going to those Outlook users. Because if you don't deliver, then it's all an exercise of futility anyway. And you're better off trying something like this, getting the conversation going and selling later than trying to sell everything in the first email and not even hitting the primary. So here we're calling out first name, seeing your company active in a particular area. Here's the quick question. Are field change orders slowing you down? Our out-end gets info to your office instantly, helps GCs trim around 40% lag. Curious, question mark. Great email. I would send that on behalf of our clients all day. So that's a quick example for you of how you can take AI and use it to do all of the research and write around the framework that you give it as well. All right, now before we jump into the second niche, there's one thing that you should know. It doesn't matter how good the email copy is. Email deliverability is still the most important metric for cold emails, especially because the entire system, Gmail, MS365, Outlook, etc., they're arrayed against you. And the worst part is most of the outreach tools on the market don't address the most fundamental piece of the architecture, which is the inboxes, what you're actually sending from. They just expect you to plug in email addresses at random, or hopefully not, but in many cases, people are plugging in their primary domains. Don't even get me started there. And they act like you can just start writing copy, and there isn't a million ways that you could end up wasting a bunch of time only to end up in the spam folder. As a team that spent thousands of hours and sent millions of emails over the course of the last couple of years, thousands and thousands every single month, I decided after a certain point that we needed to create software to solve this problem for ourselves. We need software that solves for deliverability and allows you to send at scale. So that's what we built. This software allows you to send anywhere from 10,000 to millions of cold emails per month and makes it super simple to set up the multiple domains, hundreds or thousands of inboxes that you might need that are all purpose-built for cold email. These accounts check every box on the Microsoft and Google security list. We take care of all the annoyances from finding available domains to setting up DKIM and DMARC to generating email address variations using AI based on just names that you give us. It'll spit out 50 variations or whatever's required. You just order, check out, and in 48 hours, you have your mailboxes ready to warm up in your sequencer. If you want to try it out, click the link below and our team will get you set up to start sending immediately. All right, we're coming back into our worksheet. We're gonna do one more example with a different niche just to show you how we might do this for a different space. So we're gonna go into the food production arena. And this will be about a compliance capability and software here. So I'm just going to paste in the niche here. So food and beverage manufacturing companies is the target. Here's some target personas: a plant manager, somebody in charge of the supply chain, and we've got a food safety compliance tracking and reporting software. So what I'm going to have it do, I'm just going to give it its instructions. We've already got the context from the previous niche. I'm going to leave all that in there, and I'm just going to give it a little bit more instruction to do this again for us with some tweaks. I'm going to give you another niche to write these same email variations on. The one thing I'd want you to focus on is whenever you're including information that might come from data scraping or a website or a data provider, just note below the email copy where that information would be obtainable and any other information that might be necessary to understand the context. Do 2 variations under 30 words this time, and 2 variations between 30 and 60 words. Okay, it's gonna do its thing, and let's see how these turn out. Okay, Gemini being a little slower than I like. If you run this on Grok, it's really fast. All right, here we go. 4 cold email examples for food and beverage manufacturing companies. Easier audit trails ? Great little subject line. Just enough to pique the curiosity, but not too much. Okay, first name, prepping, company names, specific product type documentation for audits. And then it's calling out specific types of audits, which is great. Takes weeks. Picture instant error-free reports. Firms like yours. You know, obviously, instead of this, it'd be more powerful with the name of a case study, but we could feed that into the model and it would throw that in there for us. It's letting us know where the data would come from, which is great. Here's another example. Take serious tracking. Imagine automating reporting, cutting risk and time. Others save 10 hours a week per plant. Intrigued. Again, specificity would help with the social proof angle, but these are great. These are with mild tweaking, ready to be uploaded into a campaign. Now, if you're doing this in Clay and you're doing this dynamically, all you really need to do is take some of these examples and back into a prompt where if you were able to feed in the dynamic variables it's asking for, whatever the name of that audit is, for example, or the first name, the cleaned up company name, etc., you can coach the AI to row by row create an email along your specifications that's unique to each recipient. And that's really the best way to deliver to the inbox and avoid all of the concerns around spin tax or too many campaigns with the same template hitting the Gmail or the Microsoft network at the same time. You can sidestep that neatly if you think about a lot of these issues in advance and do dynamic outreach. So I'm gonna pause there. We'll just come back and, all right, now after watching this video, you have everything you need to make your cold emails turn into meetings. Practice does make perfect on leveraging AI like this, whether it's doing the research or doing the copywriting. So watch this video as many times as you need and subscribe for more videos on cold email and outbound.